So people on the internet are connecting the dots that Jeffrey Epstein's temple looks exactly like a place called Hammam Yalbuga. Now we go to Hammam Yalbuga's Wikipedia page. It says, Yalbuga is a Mamluk era public bath in Aleppo, Syria. It was built in 1491. So this is a place that offers massages. You can go to a sauna here. And the connection that strikes out to me right away is massages is how Jeffrey Epstein groomed his young 14 to 16-year-old victims. He had a private mansion over there in Palm Beach, and what he would do is he would pay recruiters to go out and find women and say, hey, there's this rich guy in Palm Beach. He'll give you $200 if you go in and give him a massage. Only catch is you got to do it in your underwear. So this is how he'd invite girls into his mansion. They'd give him the massage, and of course Epstein would offer more money for a little bit more than just a massage. And this is how he kind of figured out what he could get away with. The guy is super into massages himself. It's just an interesting connection. All right, so we go on the Wikipedia page and we click Mamluk era. What is that? On its Wikipedia page, we see Mamluk is Arabic, meaning property. It's an Arabic designation for slaves. The term is most commonly used to refer to non-Muslim slave soldiers and Muslim rulers of slave origin. So what is Jeffrey Epstein guilty of? He's guilty of sex trafficking, basically slaves. And what is the architecture that he styles his temple off of? But Mamluk architecture, which is indicative to slave culture. All right, so another interesting connection with the Hammam Yalbuga is right here on the Wikipedia page. It says, it is located next to the entrance of the Citadel of Aleppo on the banks of the Kiwak River. So what is the Citadel of Aleppo? So according to Wikipedia, the Citadel of Aleppo is considered to be one of the oldest and largest castles in the world. So then we scroll down to the history section of the Citadel of Aleppo, and it says the recently discovered temple of the ancient storm god Hadad dates use of the hill to the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. So who is Hadad? Go to Hadad's Wikipedia page. I kid you not, I can't make this up. Hadad is another name for Baal. It says Hadad was also called Pidar, Repu, or Baal Siphon, or simply referred to as Baal. I think it's worth noting that Baal is also used as the title for other gods as well, but still, the bull was the symbolic animal of Hadad, which also relates to Moloch. Well, the common conspiracy here that we hear all the time is that these billionaires, they are Baal worshippers, Moloch worshippers, and Satanists. So how does all of this tie into the evidence that we are now seeing coming from Epstein's island? All right, so let's look at the side-by-side pictures of Epstein's temple and the bathhouse over in Aleppo. Look at the similarities. It's unbelievable. We can say at the very least they are resembling the same architecture. And the architecture is, in fact, the Mamluks. So who are the Mamluks? The Mamluks were a class of people, mostly of Turkic or Caucasian ethnicity, who served as slave soldiers between the 13th and 16th century in the Islamic world spanning from Egypt to Syria. The name Mamluk is derived from the Arabic word meaning slave. So there are two distinct periods during the Mamluk reigns. The first period saw the Bahri dynasty that ruled Egypt between 1250 and 1382 AD. This dynasty would import young slaves, mainly Kipchak Turks from Central Asia, and groom them to be warriors. And the second period saw the rise of Borhi Caucasian dynasty, which ruled from 1382 to 1517 AD. The Caucasian Mamluks were the white slaves that were taken from the northern Caucasus Mountains and traded in slave markets. They were captured in their early childhood, usually around 13 years of age, by the sultans who raised them in special military camps to become soldiers for the ruling class. So let's look at this quote from Voltaire, what he has to say about the Caucasians. The Caucasians are poor, and their daughters are beautiful, and indeed it is them they chiefly trade. And of all those who are wealthy enough to purchase and maintain such precious merchandise, these maidens are very honorably and virtually instructed how to fondle and caress men, and how to heighten by the most voluptuous artifices the pleasures of their disdainful masters, for whom they are designed. So what is the significance between the Mamluk architecture and the relation to Epstein's temple? The Mamluk style of architecture was considered eclectic. Throughout the Mamluk Empire, you will find many buildings, especially mosques, using what we know today as the oblak style. Oblak is an architectural style involving alternating or fluctuating rows of light and dark stone. Although the oblak style isn't unique to the Mamluks, they utilized the oblak lighting effects heavily, which was a dominant feature throughout their empire. They basically made it their own. So this architectural decision was also pushed by the Sufis, or Islamic mystics, the so-called illuminated ones. Here are some quotes from a couple of Sufis from that era. Reason is God's shadow. God is the sun. What power has the shadow before the sun? The cosmos is all darkness. It is illumined only by the manifestation of God in it. Whoever sees the cosmos and does not contemplate him in it or by it or before it or after it, it is indeed of light and is veiled from the sun of gnosis by the clouds of created things. What's so fascinating is these people, they were obsessed with the sun, and what do we find also on Jeffrey Epstein's island but a giant occult painting of the sun? So yeah, right here we see an image of the sun on Jeffrey Epstein's island, Little St. James. This is drone footage taken by a YouTuber named Rusty Shackelford, who's done great work. He actually purchased a drone, went out to the Virgin Islands himself, and got a lot of amazing video of this island. So what is the meaning then behind Epstein's temple? Epstein's temple was an ode to the Mamluk era of when captured children were taken as slaves to do the bidding of the elite class. Young boys were taken and groomed to later become soldiers, while young girls were taken and groomed to later become personal concubines of their masters. Do you now see the parallel between the Mamluks and Epstein? I mean, these people are sick. So, another piece of evidence from drone footage taken by Rusty Shackelford on the Little St. James Island here is a statue. A very mysterious statue that people on the internet can't quite figure out who it is depicting. But I have pretty good evidence to believe that it is actually Enki. For three reasons. First off, I'm going to show you side-by-side pictures of both Enki and the statue here on Jeffrey Epstein's island. The first notable similarity here are the hand positions. Notice how his hands sit on top of one another there. Look very closely at the crown or turban that the statue is wearing. You'll see a very slight upward curve, like a C, like the letter C on his turban crown there. And you'll see that same little curve on every statue of Enki as well. And I don't see this really on any other statues from the Mesopotamian era. And of course, then also notice that it has a beard, and the beard begins down from the bottom of the nose and covers the front of his chest. I'd say the beard is also quite similar to the Enki depictions that we have from Mesopotamia. I'm pretty sure also that it is Enki because it fits with the Luciferian idea of it all as well. So according to both theistic and atheistic Satanists, and there is a very big difference between the two, they both agree that Enki is a metaphor for Satan, for Lucifer. And Enki is often referred to as a snake. Alright, so according to Sumerian legends, Enki was among the Anunnaki. Those were the gods that created humans. It was Enki, Enlil, and a few other of the Anunnaki. Now, the reason that they created humans was to be a slave race to mine for gold. At first, it was the responsibility of the lesser gods to mine the gold, but they eventually got sick of doing this, so Enki created the great idea of, hey, there's these ape-like hominids over here on Earth. Let's turn them into a slave race that we can use to mine our gold. Enki and Enlil turned the lower-level hominids into the humans that we are today in order for us to mine materials. So this goes on for a while, but then Enki feels guilty about this, and he ascends down to humanity, and he frees them by giving them knowledge. And this is within direct reference to Genesis of the snake, Lucifer, coming down and giving the tree of knowledge over to humanity. And it's therefore no coincidence that Enki is often referred to as a serpent. Enki is actually part of the Brotherhood of the Serpent, and in ancient tablets, Enki is shown as having a serpent's tail. In fact, the Old Testament, which is based off of 39 books written in classic Hebrew, is based off of Genesis, which was originally a Mesopotamian story of Adamu, look at that connection there, being the first human who is a part of this slave race, and Enki frees him. So these people have good reason to believe that Enki is a direct representation of Lucifer. And overall, this isn't really innately a bad thing. Lucifer just being a symbol towards rebellion of authority. But then the Old Testament, it was translated by 72 Hebrew scholars, which happened in 300 BC. And when they made this translation, they noticed that the Genesis of the Old Testament, strangely enough, said, "We made humans in our image," which was weird to them because at that time, Judaism was monotheistic, meaning one God. So they just kind of brushed this off, not knowing that the term Elohim in ancient Hebrew was in reference to the Anunnaki, of ancient Mesopotamian and Sumerian origin, El meaning God and Ohim meaning plural. We made them in our image. So the Jewish scholars, they translated this at, again, 200, 300 BC in an event known as the Septuagint, but what they changed was they made Enki giving the fruit of knowledge over to Adam as a negative thing. But in ancient Mesopotamian culture, receiving the fruit of knowledge was a positive thing. Humanity was freed from the confines of their slavery. But then you see in our Judeo-Christian culture, it becomes a negative. So, I mean, it's understandable why these people think Lucifer is a positive symbol, which I don't think is a bad thing either, because there's a large difference between atheistic Satanists and theistic Satanists. The majority of Satanists today are atheistic. They derive from LaVeyan Satanism, which, again, they just view Lucifer as a symbol of rebellion against authority, which is not a bad thing. Where I think Epstein and his crew are a little weird is it really looks like they're into theistic Satanism, as in that entails worshiping these strange beings, that entails doing rituals in order to curb their favor. I think that this is apparent due to just the symbolism that's riddled across Epstein's island, and just the justification of a man to be able to do something as disgusting as traffic children and have sex with children, which is exactly what he is being convicted of doing, with a slew of other very powerful individuals. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention as well, another occult symbolism that was found on the island, thanks to the investigative work of Rusty Shackelford and his drones, are the armillary spheres. As you can see here in this image, and the armillary spheres were commonly used by the Zoroastrians. The Zoroastrians are an extremely ancient religion, actually the first one ever to have the idea of a monotheistic religion, which is actually why Judaism today is monotheistic. Before they were polytheistic, before the Jewish people were conquered by the Persians, and the Persians had the religion of Zoroastrianism. So Zoroastrianism and ancient Judaism are very closely linked. For example, the three wise men in the story of Jesus in the manger, they were a part of the order of the Magi, which were Zoroastrian. They were Zoroastrians. As you can see in Raphael's famous painting, The School of Athens, in this painting, Ptolemy is holding an armillary sphere, and Zoroaster, the god of the Zoroastrian religion, is holding another. And you could even tell that Raphael, the painter himself, had an incredible amount of respect towards Zoroastrianism because he placed himself directly next to Zoroaster in the painting. So Zoroastrianism is a very intriguing religion. is actually a fascinating religion that still exists today, and in Iran and India, which is a very peaceful religion itself. But I'm sure Epstein and his friends have found a way to skew that religion to something malicious. For example, Zoroastrianism believes that good and evil are just natural parts of the universe. I'd be willing to bet that since Zoroastrianism says good and evil are just natural parts of the universe, this could be how Epstein justifies his horrible acts. It's just a natural part of the universe, according to Zoroastrianism. And another thing, of course, like Lucifer is a symbol of enlightenment. These people think that they are enlightened. That's probably maybe where the relation of the idea of the Illuminati comes from. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that this statue here definitely represents Enki, due to the similarities I discussed, due to the hand positions, due to the upward tilt on the front of the crown, due to the beard being located directly below the nose, and due to the fact that Enki is directly linked to Lucifer, and these people have been accused of nefarious activities that could be related to Satanism. The architecture of his temple is definitely not indicative of a workout facility, as ABC News has said. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Hopefully you have a better understanding of Epstein's temple, what that guy's sick philosophy is on life. Because I know I was really curious. I had to figure this out. So thank you for listening. I'm really happy I can bring this information out to other people who will actually listen to it, because this is fascinating stuff. Like, I don't knock Jeffrey Epstein for being into ancient Judaic religion. I'm into it too. I think the occult is fascinating. I think Baal worship, the Canaanites, interesting stuff. That's why I research it. But the fact that they take it a step further with, clues towards ritualistic sacrifice, the fact that they think that they can use this as a means to gain power, like, why? Why would you do... I understand why someone would do it, but the fact that they are doing it is a problem. Which is why light needs to be shed on this. I think that there is enough evidence here to say that they're probably into this stuff. And another thing that Rusty's shown with his drone footage is that that island is wired everywhere. There's wires connecting underground. I mean, I think that it doesn't take someone with an electrical engineering degree to figure out that, there are some underground facilities on that island. We see a little tunnel that exits underneath the temple. We're seeing wires that connect underground. We're seeing the fact that he actually bought a submarine and that his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, has a submarine license. This guy has been convicted of sex trafficking. He has underground wires. He has a door that leads to an underground facility. He has a submarine. He has a submarine docking bay on the island. And he's been convicted of sex trafficking. So I think it's safe to say that there's a lot more going on here than what we're able to physically see on the outer surface. And on the outer surface, we see statues dedicated to Enki, basically Lucifer. We see occult symbolism with the sun, with armillary spheres, with the Mamluk architecture, an architecture that dates back to a time of Caucasian slavery, to the slavery of little girls being sold for sex to very rich sultans. I mean, this is just super fascinating. Hopefully you can understand why this is fascinating. Anyway, that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave a like and subscribe. I will have more content coming soon.